I believed in vampires. I did believe in the weird and horrible things people could sometimes do to one another. Savage bites, sadistic hangings, draining blood out of bodies, attack tigers. For once, I couldn't begin to imagine what the killers might be like. I couldn't profile them. Neither could the FBI's behavioral science unit. Kyle Craig had admitted as much to me. That was one reason he was out here himself. Kyle was stumped too. There was no precedent for this string of murders. Jamila appeared at my desk around 7:45. She had been working down the hall. She had a very pretty face, but tonight she just looked tired. There's a simple fact of life about police work. Adrenaline gets flowing during bad cases. It makes everybody's feelings more intense. Attractions grow and can cause unanticipated problems. I had been there before, and maybe so had Jamila. She acted like it. Maybe that was why we were a little tentative around each other. She leaned over my desk and I could smell a light cologne. I have to go back to San Francisco, Alex. I'm heading out to the airport now. I left beaucoup notes for you and Kyle on some of the files I was able to get through. I'll tell you what, though. It doesn't seem to me that all the murders were committed by the same killers. That's my contribution for today. Why do you say that? I asked. Actually, I'd had the same feeling. Nothing to substantiate it, though. Just a gut reaction to the evidence we had gathered so far. Jamila rubbed the bridge of her nose, then she wrinkled it some. Her mannerisms were funny and made me smile. The patterns keep changing, especially if you look at the most recent murders versus the ones from a year or two ago. In the earlier murders, the killers were methodical, very careful. The last couple of murders are slapdash, Alex, more violent, too. I don't disagree. I'll look at all the files carefully. So will Kyle and his folks at Quantico. Anything else bothering you? I asked. She thought about it. A strange crime was reported this morning. Might be something. Funeral home in Woodland Hills. Somebody broke in, ravaged one of the bodies. Could be a copycat. I left the file for you. Anyway, I have to run if I want to catch the next shuttle. You'll keep in touch? Of course I will, absolutely. You're not getting off the hook this easily. She waved once, and then she was gone down the hallway. I hated to see her leave. Jam. Chapter 25. 10 minutes after Jamila left to catch her plane back to San Francisco, Kyle appeared at my desk. He looked like a rumpled, tweedy, 40-something professor who had just emerged from his library carrel after days of researching a scholarly piece for a criminal justice journal. You cracked the code? I asked him. If you did, can I get a flight out of here tonight? I'm catching hell at home for being out here. I didn't crack a goddamn thing, he complained. Then he yawned. My head feels a little cracked, like there's a slow leak or something. He rubbed his knuckles back and forth against his skull. You believe in New Age vampires yet? I asked. Role players? He gave me one of his crooked little half smiles. Oh, I always believed in vampires, ever since I was a boy in Virginia and then North Carolina. Vampires, ghosts, zombies, other diabolical creatures of the night. Southerners believe in such things. It's our Gothic heritage, I suppose. Actually, ghosts are more our specialty. I definitely believe in ghosts. I wish this were only a ghost story. Maybe it is. I saw a ghost the other night. Her name was Mary Alice Richardson. These bastards hung and murdered her during one of their pleasure fests. Around 9, Kyle and I finally left the station house in Brentwood to get some grub and maybe a few beers. I was pleased to have some time with him. Bad thoughts were buzzing in my head. Disconnected feelings, suspicions, and general paranoia about the case. And, of course, there was always the mastermind to worry about. He might call or send a fax or email. We stopped at a small bar called the Knoll on the way back to the hotel. It looked like a quiet place to have a drink and talk. Kyle and I often did this when we were on the road together. So how are you doing out here, Alex? Kyle asked, after he'd taken a sip of Anchor Steam. You all right? Holding up so far? I know you don't like being away from Nana and the kids. I'm sorry about that. Can't be helped. This is a big case. I was too tired to argue with him. In the words of Tiger Woods, I didn't have my A game today. I'm a little stumped, Kyle. This is all new and all bad. He nodded and said, I don't mean today. Overall, in general, on balance. How the hell are you doing? You seem tense to me. We've all been noticing it, Alex. You don't volunteer much at St. Anthony's anymore. Little things like that. I looked at him, studied his intense brown eyes. He was a friend, but Kyle was also a calculating man. He wanted something. What was he after? What thoughts were going through his mind? On balance, I'm totally fucked. No, I'm okay. I'm happy with the way the kids are doing. Little Alex is the best antidote for anything. Damon and Janny are doing fine. I still miss Christine. I miss her a lot. I'm troubled about how much time I spend investigating the sickest, most fucked up crimes that anyone can conjure up. Other than that, I'm just fine. Kyle said, You're in demand because you're good at this. That's just the way it is. Your instincts, your emotional IQ, something sets you apart from the other cops. Maybe I'd rather not be so good anymore. Maybe I'm not. The murder cases have affected every aspect of my life. I'm afraid they're changing who I am. Tell me about Betsy Cavalier. Anything on the case? There must be something. Kyle shook his head. His eyes showed concern. There's absolutely nothing on her murder, Alex. Nothing on the mastermind either. That prick still calling you any time of day or night? Yeah, he never mentions Betsy or her murder anymore. We could set up another trace on your phones. I'll do that for you. It wouldn't do any good. Kyle continued to look deep into my eyes. I sensed he was concerned, but it was hard to tell with him. You think he might be watching you? Following you? I shook my head. Sometimes I get that feeling, yeah. Let me ask you something, since I have you here. Why do you keep pulling me into these messed up cases, Kyle? We worked Casanova down in Durham, the Dunn and Goldberg kidnapping, the bank robberies, now this piece of shit. Kyle didn't hesitate to spell it out. You're the best I know, Alex. Your instincts are almost always on target. You give these investigations the best shot they could get. Sometimes you solve them, sometimes not, but you're always close. Why don't you come join us at the Bureau? I'm serious, and yes, this is an offer. Well, there it was. Kyle's agenda for the meeting. He wanted me at Quantico with him. I roared with laughter, and then he did too. To tell you the truth, I don't feel close on this one, Kyle. I feel lost, I finally admitted. It's still early in the game, he said. The offer stands, win or lose out here. I want you to come to Quantico. I want you working close to me. There's nothing that would make me happier.
Chapter 26. This was a good break. Better than they could have expected or hoped for. William and Michael followed the two hotshot police dicks from the station house in Brentwood. They stayed a reasonable distance back in their van. The brothers didn't particularly care if they lost them. They knew what hotel they were staying at. They knew how to find them. They even knew their names. Kyle Craig, FBI, a dick from Quantico, a big case man, one of the Bureau's best. Alex Cross, Washington PD, forensic psychologist to the stars. There was a saying that William wanted to whisper in their ears. If you hunt for the vampire will hunt for you. That was the truth, but it also sounded too much like a rule. William fucking hated rules. Rules made you predictable, less of an individual. Rules made you less free, less authentic, less yourself. And in the end, rules could get you caught. William touched down lightly, tentatively, on the van's brake pedal. Maybe they shouldn't hunt the two cops down, then kill them like dogs, he was thinking. Maybe they had a lot better things to do while they were in L.A. There was a special place here where he and Michael often went. It was called the Church of the Vampire, and it was for those who were searching for the dragon within. It actually was a church. Vast, high-ceilinged rooms filled with funky old Victorian furniture, elaborate golden candelabras, human skulls, and other bones. Tapestries that portrayed stories of famous old bloodseekers. The usual dreaded role players came to the church, but also real vampires. like William and Michael. Exciting, very exotic, sado-erotic things happened inside the Church of the Vampire. Excruciating pain was transformed into ecstasy. William remembered his last visit, and it sent electricity shooting through his body. He had found a blond boy of 17, an angel, a prince. The boy was dressed in all black that night, even had black contact lenses, absolutely gorgeous from every angle. To show William that he was a real vampire, the darling boy punctured his own carotid artery and then drank his own blood. Then he asked William to drink, to be one with him. When he and Michael hung the boy to drain him completely, it was out of love and adoration of the angel's perfect body. They were merely fulfilling their nature, to be sado-erotic. William came out of his delicious reverie as the two cops entered a bar called the Knoll. It was just off Sunset Boulevard, very mundane, a nothing spot, perfect for the two of them. "They're going drinking together," William said to Michael. "Cop camaraderie." Michael snickered and rolled his eyes. "They're just two old men, they're harmless, toothless," he said, and laughed at his joke. William watched Alex Cross and Kyle Craig disappear inside. "No," he finally said. "Let's be careful with them. One of them is extremely dangerous. I can feel his energy."
Chapter 27. I finally had a lead, courtesy of Tim, Jamila's contact at the San Francisco Examiner. The chase was on, or so I hoped. The next morning I drove up Route 101 to Santa Barbara, which is located approximately 100 miles north of L.A. It was sobering and a little depressing to watch the sky actually grow bluer as I traveled away from Los Angeles, and the copper-gray cover of smog spread thickly over the city. I was to meet a man named Peter Weston at the Davidson Library at the University of California, Santa Barbara. The library was supposed to contain the most extensive collection of books on vampires and vampire mythology in the United States. Weston was the expert who had been recommended by Tim. She warned me that Weston was thoroughly eccentric, but a definitive source on vampires past and present. He met me in a small private sitting room just off the library's main reading room. Peter Weston looked to be in his early 40s and was dressed completely in deep purple and black. Even his fingernails were painted a shade of mauve. According to Jamila, he owned a clothing and jewelry shop in a small mall called El Paseo on State Street in Santa Barbara. He had long black hair streaked with silver, and he was dark and dangerous looking. "I'm Detective Alex Cross," I said as I shook hands with Weston. His grip was strong, lacquered fingernails or no. "I am Weston, descended from Vlad Tepes. I bid you welcome. The night air is chill, and you must need to eat and rest," he said in overly dramatic tones. I found myself smiling at the prepared speech. Sounds like something the Count might have said in one of the old Dracula movies. Weston nodded, and when he smiled I saw that his teeth were perfectly formed. No fangs. In several of them, actually. It's the official invitation of the Transylvania Society of Dracula in Bucharest. I immediately asked, "Are there American chapters?" "American and Canadian. There's even a chapter in South Africa and in Tokyo. There are several 100,000 men and women with an avid interest in vampires. Surprise you, Detective? You thought we were a more modest cult?" "I might have a week ago, but not now," I said. "Nothing surprises me much anymore. Thanks for talking to me." Weston and I took seats at a large oak library table. He had selected a dozen or more volumes on vampires for me to read, or at least leaf through. "I especially recommend Carol Page's Bloodlust, Conversations with Real Vampires. Miss Page is the real deal. She gets it," he told me, and handed over Bloodlust. "She has met vampires and records their activities accurately and fairly. She started her investigation as a skeptic, much like yourself, I expect." "You're right, I'm very skeptical," I admitted. I told Peter Weston about the most recent murder in Los Angeles, and then he let me ask whatever questions I wished about the vampire world. He answered patiently, and I soon learned